Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and today I am hanging out with Jason Charles Miller. You are one first name away from being a serial killer, sir. How are you today?
That's true. What if you had come over to my house and I closed the door and just said, "Dinner is served"?
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I would be worried, but I'm like, we're a one first name away. We're good. So, we actually had the opportunity and the privilege of meeting you a couple months back when we went on our LA adventure, and we you had a Game of Thrones party, and we kind of came over, hang out, loitered at your place, and I was virtually raped by your dogs, but it was a good times all in all.
Yeah. Yeah. We a lot of people actually a lot of people that I work with at Geek and Sundry. We would have weekly Game of Thrones viewing parties. So our group is sacred. So I'm glad that you were able to come over and enjoy that with us.
And
But yeah,
yeah,
being assaulted by the dogs is part of the initiation process.
I see that. And they were some quite large and intimidating dogs, although they were sweethearts. Honestly, they they just didn't really have much respect for personal space.
No, no, they're lawless. They're basically lawless.
Yeah, but it was a good time, and it was like for us, it was like the total like LA experience. It's like after we left, we found out that the actor that actually played Lancel Lannister was there, and we didn't know, like we didn't realize it at the time, like, but all these
Oh, you didn't
like
know that was
references,
him the whole time? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all these like Lannister references were flying by. I'm like, well, sometimes people just like assholes. Maybe that's why, or whatever. But it turns out it's because he was actually one of the actors that played a Lannister, and so that was pretty cool. I was like, it's probably better. It was probably better that Satine and Rue didn't say anything until afterwards.
Yeah, I thought maybe they had told you already. So
But yeah, so for us, it was a really cool experience, and I guess that's part of living out in LA.
yeah, it's always living in LA is crazy. I remember very specifically one night, a late night at Ralph's, which is our grocery chain here. Um, and within the realm of 5 minutes, um, I ran into the actor that played the sheriff in The Big Lebowski. If you're a Big Lebowski fan, the guy that played the sheriff of Malibu in Big Lebowski, get your gold bricking ass out of my beach community, Lebowski. So I saw him in the vegetable aisle. I saw Malcolm Jamal Warner buying cereal. And then in another aisle, I was like looking at something, and then I got hit with a shopping cart kind of lightly. I look over. This guy goes, "Hey, sorry, man." And it was Joe Walsh from the Eagles. And this all happened within 5 minutes. So, that can just happen to you in LA.
That's funny. So I'm just like putting it in the chat now.
I'm having issues. So I see the chat on the right, but it's blank. But then if I click on the link, it opens a new page where I
Yes.
see the chat scrolling, but I don't see it scrolling on our page. Does that make sense?
You won't see it on our page. So
Oh, okay.
you know what? You asked me, and I probably just misspoke. But yeah, so if you just bring up the chat, I usually have it in a smaller window up so that I can see what's going on over there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll just open it in a separate window then.
So you're actually after this at some point you have to run out and you have to do some voices. Is the room right here?
It is, yeah. In fact, I got my time zones screwed up, and I thought because I have a session at noon and you're in noon, and I was on the East Coast at the time when we were confirming. Uh, yeah, at noon my time, I have another session for Neverwinter Online. So that's a game I've been working on for a few years now, uh, as the voice of Drist and
Gig that keeps
others.
giving, huh?
What's that?
So that's the gig that keeps giving.
It is, yeah. So and what a gift, what a joy to be the voice of Drist. You know, after knowing about him and he's the perennial badass of D&D, and to be able to be his voice in the game is really a thrill.
We for years we've pronounced it Drizzt.
I talked to the everyone at Cryptic, and then even R.A. Salvatore said Drizzt, so that's what I went with.
That makes sense. But in the Homeland series, there's a line where he like encounters this peasant kid and like disarms him and stuff, and phonetically pronounces his name. Or the peasant phonetically pronounces his name. It could be the peasant mispronouncing it, but it's phonetically spelled out. What is a Drizzt?
Right. Yeah.
And then I guess whoever introduced me to the books called it Drizzt, and then like I introduced the books to my group. So we started this chain reaction of mispronouncing Drizzt for years, and I'm really old and stubborn and set in my ways.
That's okay. You can, if you want to write me a strongly worded letter later, you can.
No way, man. It's all good. You gotta make that paycheck. I would call whatever they want me to. As long as the check clears, we're good.
Right.
So you also do some other things. You're on Project Alpha.
Oh wait, I want to answer something in the chat. No, I didn't meet R.A. Salvatore, but I did talk to him, but I didn't meet him in person. So you don't have to be that jealous.
Only a little jealous.
Yeah.
So what is Starter Kit over on Project Alpha for people that don't know?
Okay, cool. Well, what Starter Kit is, well, first of all, should I explain what Project Alpha is?
Sure, you can.
Okay. What I kind of equate Project Alpha to people that aren't in the gaming community at all, or aren't really in the nerdosphere at all, is what I explain to them. As I say, Alpha is kind of like a Netflix for nerds. It's all like really specific content based around gaming, role-playing games, science, just stuff that nerdy people like us are interested in. Legendary Pictures is the company behind it, and a few years ago they bought Felicia Day's Geek and Sundry. They bought Chris Hardwick's Nerdist, and they bought Amy Poehler's Smart Girls, and they let all the companies look. You can do. We want you to. We bought you because we want you to do what you're doing. We don't want to change you. So they put all three companies in the same building, and kind of let us go wild. So Project Alpha has the sort of premier content, the content that they're spending the most money on to really try to launch this subscription service. And so what Starter Kit is, and it's $5 a month. And so what Starter Kit is it's a bridge to RPGs for people that maybe know the Geek and Sundry or Nerdist content from watching it, like games and shows like Critical Role, but might not really understand the game mechanics. So every 6 episodes, we're changing to new games. The first 6 was Dungeons and Dragons, where I was the DM. I'm the host of the show, but I won't always be the DM. Sometimes I'll be a player. So the first 6 episodes was Dungeons and Dragons. I took everybody through a classic dungeon crawl, B1, In Search of the Unknown, one of the original modules, modified for 5th edition. And then for the next 6 episodes, which we're in right now, is 7th Sea. And we actually got John Wick, the creator of 7th Sea, to be the DM on that.
Well, that's a good deal. I mean, you can't get any better than the actual creator of the game.
Right. So we're determining now what the next batch is going to be. And we may go back to D&D too, because what I did with D&D was I wanted to make it as simple as possible for people who had never played or seen a D&D game played before. So I wanted to make it, everyone starts at first level. It's that I wanted to be the classic party makeup, I still say fighter, cleric, magic user, thief, but of course it was fighter, cleric, wizard, rogue. I just wanted to make it uh, just that classic setting that we all grew up in, that where we learn how to play the game, so that so that I didn't want to confuse people too much and overwhelm them with too many classes or too many races. Um, so so yeah. So we might go back. So everyone was first level in that batch of episodes. Maybe we'll go back and start everyone at third level or fifth level and teach people how to play characters that are a little bit more advanced.
So Tucker Author asked the question: are you using the same cast, or are you swapping out casts with each system?
So far we've swapped out the cast with each system, but I think what we're going to do is bring some of the cast back and maybe mix and match. We now have a good group of like 9 players that we can now choose from, and we'll use some people that people know from Geek and Sundry, other like brand new players. So at the same time, they also want to make a TV show, so getting compelling people for the audience to watch is always important too.
So are there specific things you guys are doing or have in mind when you're filming these episodes to help people that are new to the hobby?
Yeah, we use a lot of online, we are on-screen graphic displays to kind of help the viewer visualize what's happening. I do a whole episode. The first episode of every new batch is about character creation. I thought that was really important because a lot of shows gloss over that because, of course, they want to get to the campaign, and that's cool. But I actually, character creation is still part of the game. That's still playing the game, and so I wanted to show that because I feel like that can give, especially brand new players, um, a handle on the game that like we all take for granted. Like you know what initiative is, but like having to re-explain that from the beginning is kind of fun because they're just things that we completely forget because we just do it as second nature as lifelong RPG players.
Fair enough. So, guys, remember in the chat, if you're going to ask questions, put either question or GM91 before the question so they're easy to pick out. So, Aaron Marks, he is over from Fantasy Grounds College, where they teach people to use Fantasy Grounds often. Wants to know if you guys are planning on using any like virtual tabletops in your games, or to kind of add to that question, do you use miniatures or theater of the mind?
For the D&D episodes, for example, we used miniatures, and then I also did a couple of combats with theater of the mind so that we could show the viewer, here's how you would do it with miniatures. Here's how, if you don't have miniatures or if you don't have room for a map, here's how you could do it, just talking to each other and rolling. So, I mean, it's possible. I think that at least so far, at the end of the day, I've got producers that I have to I don't know, report to or whatever
Work with. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they've got a certain thing in mind and how they want the show to look. So it's a combination of showing everyone how to play, but also making a program that people can enjoy.
No, I actually absolutely get it. It's walking that line. We stream games, so like at the same thing, it's like how entertaining versus the game, right? So you're always walking that fine line of doing both.
Yeah. Can I answer some of the questions over
Yeah,
here?
sure.
So what I did was Zareft Gaming asked, do you guys go over every race class or do you skip over it? I didn't go into detail on every race or class. I mainly talked about fighters, rogues, wizards, and mages, and clerics, because if I explained every single class and every single race, it just wouldn't fit with the format of how they wanted the show. Every episode is about 45 minutes long. So I explain the race in class kind of as we're rolling the characters. So the races that we used, of course, were human, half elf, dwarf, and halfling. Because to me, when it's so funny, the first game, the first set of D&D that I ever bought was the 1980 set, which was called Basic D&D, which I know was kind of an outlier because it only existed for a short amount of time, and that was when elf was a class and dwarf was a class. So there, if you were a cleric or a thief or a fighter, you were human, but then everything else was like a fighter version of that race, and there was no lawful good or chaotic evil. It was just good, neutral, or evil. But anyways, so that's how I remember learning it, and then so I wanted to simplify that in the same way, and I felt like that's the classic makeup of a party. So let's just go with that.
It's also, very Tolkien-esque, and like where kind of like the roots come from as well. We actually had Frank Menser on a little while back, and he's the guy that actually wrote all that series, which was really cool.
Hey, look what I'm reading right now for the fourth time.
Oh my God, for the fourth time?
Just some light reading.
I never made it through that book.
It's like reading a bad translation of the Bible sometimes.
Genesis. Well, God bless you, man. So Shadowcat has a question, and I can actually answer this because we when we went out to LA, it was to be on Geek and Sundry, and the problem with having international people appear on Alpha and Geek and Sundry or any of their programs is you have to get there. Like, they use local people for the most part, because that's what works. I mean, that trip was, somewhere, it was probably somewhere close to like $3,000 just to go out there. So for what you're going to get paid to be on a show like this, for most people, it is not going to make sense, and it wouldn't make sense for the shows to bring people in because, I don't think they have a decent budget, but I don't think it's quite that good.
You went by The Office, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that at the end of the day, it's still a fledgling company. It's still the internet. We're not Netflix by any stretch of the imagination. So to fly in people to do it, they can't afford that, so luckily we're in Los Angeles, which is the entertainment capital of the world, so there's plenty of people to pick from here. And the cool thing is there are plenty of people that have moved to LA who are from all over the world, and diversity is something that we try really hard to establish in all of our episodes of the starter kit, especially because we tape it, and so that gives us a little bit more flexibility we don't need somebody that can be available on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. every Wednesday forever. We film the episodes in big chunks. So we'll film several episodes a day. So that makes our pool of people that we can pick from a little bit larger, just simply because of availability.
So Warigo Keep wants to know, do you feel like hosting a show versus playing a game like without the camera has changed the way the game runs for you?
I would say it did at first. Um, for 15 months, I was on a live show that Ivan Van Norman hosted called Foreververse, and I was a player on that show. And for the first couple of months, I was really nervous. You sort of feel like you're in a fishbowl. And then when Ivan was organizing the details for International Tabletop Day, he took a month off and from being the GM, and then let some of the players GM. And so I did a 3-episode arc that I called Back to Basic, and I made everyone play Basic, and that was kind of what inspired Starter Kit. And on those episodes, which are on YouTube now, it was on our Twitch channel at the time, and now they're available on YouTube. Over that course of the 3 episodes, I explained a lot, like the differences between basic D&D and 5th edition, and what some of the rule changes were and stuff like that. And I was really nervous and self-conscious running a game for the very first time live, with 1,000+ live viewers. But so I would say at first, yes, but then as I got more comfortable, you're just running the game. And having been on a show for many months at that point as a player, you kind of get used to the fact that the cameras are on you all the time.
Yeah, I have to say, like, we've shot in well over 2,000 videos at this point. And, going out to Geek and Sundry and actually being on an actual set was a bit of a freak out, compared to what we're used to. Like, we're used to like one camera in front of us. There's no one on the other side of it. It's Ted's basement, that we built the set in. And, it's completely different. And when you're on the set and we're doing GM tips and you're looking out and there's like 15, 20 people running around doing their jobs, and we're, doing the show.
Someone asked me what my favorite class to play in 5th edition is, and I would say Rogue, because rogues are super OP at low level. So I think you have the best chance of survival.
They do give a nice mix of abilities. And it's probably one of the character classes I play the least.
Well, it was funny because on Starter Kit, I had 5 players for the D&D segment of episodes, and I had 2 people that had played before, because really, if you're going to play D&D for the first time, chances are there's 1 or 2 people there that have played before. And so I wanted to get a couple of people that had played before, but then I got 3 people that had never played before in their life. And one of them was Carmel, who ended up playing a rogue, and she mopped the floor. She ended up being, she did the most damage, killed the most people. And so I was like, wow, rogues in 5th edition at lower levels are super OP. So I was digging it.
I was just reading one of the questions. So, question: do you have plans to make content?
You hear the dog?
I do hear the dogs.
He's barking for you.
So, Aaron Marks wants to know: do you have plans to make the content video on demand and viewer participation for live broadcast? Yeah, it is. Project Alpha, everything is video on demand, and then some of the stuff is live, right?
Right. Yeah. So it depends. Yeah. So with Project Alpha specifically, they do run some shows live, but a lot of the shows with like more cameras and editing and like on-screen graphic explanations and things like that, we do tape those. But what we often do is I'll do a live watch along. So like, for example, like this Friday at 6 Pacific, we'll watch the next episode of Starter Kit live. So it'll be like everyone will jump in the chat room, okay, hit play, and then we all watch it together and then talk talk together. So I try to keep that live experience going by hosting the live watch-alongs. And then sometimes we even do picture-in-picture watch-alongs where it'll be broadcast live on the whole system, and then we're sitting there watching it, bantering with each other.
So you also do music, right? You're also a musician?
Yeah. Yep. You saw the gold records on my wall.
I did. Well, I vaguely remember that. To be honest with you, that 4 or 5 days we were out there was kind of
a blur. Yeah.
It's like, did I see the gold records on your wall, or did I?
Oops. Yeah.
But as always, guys, there is a bunch of links in the description, so you can also follow Jason elsewhere as well.
So I've been a professional. What actually brought me to Hollywood is I've been a professional musician since I was 17, and for years and years I was the lead singer of a band called Godhead that had a pretty good amount of success. I worked with Marilyn Manson for many years, and now I'm a solo artist, and I own a recording studio, and I produced Billy Ray Cyrus's latest album, and I'm signed to Sony as an artist, and my new album comes out in April. And I've written the theme songs to about 7 or 8 of the shows on Geek and Sundry, because once they figured out that I was a musician and that I had worked with Felicia Day previously on some music stuff, they keep hiring me to write new songs. I wrote the Critical Role theme song too.
Nice. There's so many things in the description I've left out that I didn't know about that are coming out now.
Cool. Yeah, that's really what kind of my first big success in entertainment was music, and I was lucky enough to sort of parlay that into the acting career, and continue to luckily be a working active musician.
Oh, Shadow Cat has a question, and I've been meaning to ask this one anyway, because I actually couldn't remember the name of the show, but I keep seeing the commercial and the sponsor ads on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. So Shadow Cat asks, what is it like working as Bunker Bot with Whitney Moore?
It is awesome. So we have another show on Project Alpha called Thrashtopia, and that's a sitcom. So that's completely like we're playing characters of ourselves, and basically the concept of Thrashtopia is my quick description is it's kind of like Pee-wee's Playhouse if the apocalypse had happened.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that, because when I saw it, and I was like, I wanted to ask you about it, and I'm like, is it going to be insulting? Because it reminds me of a Saturday morning kids show, but for adults.
Totally. It's got some Max Headroom in there, which is kind of my character. So I play Bunker Bot, which is a computer AI based on me. So I get to play myself, but the concept is that I'm her AI companion who's keeping her alive and keeping her mind active and keeping her doing activities. And so like anytime there's screens all over the set, and anytime I need to talk to her, I just pop up on this screen and start talking to her. But yeah, it's super fun. And we're right in the middle of that on Project Alpha, and I mean, you just got to watch it. It's weird. It's crazy. I also did with my friend Jeff Vicente, I did all the music for that show as well. And so the soundtrack is like super metal, and it's really fun.
So Tony R has a question, and I'm going to ask this question, but guys, I want to start the roll call. So sound off where you're at, where you're coming from. When you first started playing D&D, if someone told you were going to become a nerd rock stars, would you have believed them? I'm also going to sneak in Poison's question as well, and he wants to know if you played D&D with Marilyn Manson.
Okay, well, I'll start with the first one. Yeah, no, there's so many things that have happened in my life that if you told my younger self, I would be like, are you kidding me? another another thing, like a big Hollywood moment for me was years ago. I was having a party, not here where you were, but where I lived before, and there were a million people at this party, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and everyone was leaving, and the one person who didn't want to leave was Cece DeVille from Poison, from the band Poison, and I was like, Cece, man, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. We're going to go to sleep. Everyone's going to sleep. And he sort of begrudgingly left. And I said to myself, man, when I had like a Poison poster on my wall when I was 14, I never thought that I would be kicking him out of my house. And I never played D&D with Marilyn Manson, but I did give him a old school monster manual as a gift, because it was, talking about D&D was an icebreaker for both of us. I remember, so like, to continue the sort of ice breaking humor, I bought a like the original monster manual. I've got one in the other room, but with the sort of like flat drawings of like the manticore and the purple worm coming up.
Centaur, yeah.
Yeah, so I got that for him as kind of as a laugh, but he appreciated that.
Nice. I want to jump into the chat now for roll call and see where people are listening from. We got Frigginator in Washington State. Poison is in Kuwait. OZ is represented with Raven. Zaref Gaming is in Rodizio, New Mexico. Utah, Virgilio. We've got our staff chief in Nerdator, Doug, is in Cleveland. We've got War Eagle Keep, that produces our Marvel show, in Arkansas. We've got New York City with Brian F. Aaron Marks is in Seattle, Washington. We got Shadow Cat saying sound off UK. We've got Nathan in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Georgia with Brian. Shivs the Stab is in Oklahoma. We've got Smoked Out Slave Lake, Canada. Rochester, New York in the house with Dan. We've got Minnesota with Kurt. And I guess they got distracted from the roll call listening to your story. Geek and Undies is in Circleville, Ohio. DM Don is in Philly, right over the bridge from us. So the roll call is a little light today, guys, for the number of people in the chat, but that's okay. We
any Virginia in there? That's where I grew up, Virginia.
Did I miss Virginia?
No, I don't know. I'm just wondering, maybe some people.
Oh, if there is a Virginia,
yeah.
Yeah, we usually have a couple people from Sweden. It's usually pretty international.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. Thanks, Walt.
Yeah, man, I love Godhead. So it's always cool to see where people are coming from. So with Starter Kit, is there a process for picking the next game?
To be honest, man, like, even though I'm the host of the show, that's where the behind the scenes stuff comes in, where I don't get, even though I clearly, like, the concept of the show was always about D&D first and then see what happens next. So yeah, D&D was first, but then, when they found out that John Wick was available to do 7th Sea, then obviously we moved things around to make 7th Sea next. So whatever the next game is going to be, which hasn't been officially decided yet, we'll probably be bringing in someone associated with that game. So I think a lot of it has to do with, once again, availability. It's that whole balance of, what do we want to play next, but then also, like, who's available and can be on this show that we're making. So as of right now, no decisions have been made, but it's all like, we're going to start with prominent games that a lot of people play or have played, classic, as much as we can. Like me personally, and I know not a lot of people play this game anymore, but another game that I grew up playing was Gamma World. And so I'm going to push that hard. I mean, I want to do a Gamma World series, even though, probably not as many people play it anymore. But, just for me personally.
Which version? Which edition?
I used to play the original version, which was the stats were so close to D&D that I think there was even it might have been in Dragon magazine, or it might have been in the back of the original rule books, where you could have like Gamma World characters like go through a portal and then be in D&D, and then D&D characters could come into the world of Gamma World. So that was another favorite of mine. I also used to play Star Frontiers a lot, but the rules were a lot more frustrating to me.
Nice. I love all the love for these dead games. We're actually playing a Marvel Phase Rip game that we stream. We actually streamed it last night, which is a lot of fun. So if you got to call the shots and you could pick the games and who would run them, what would your lineup look like?
I mean, I would love to do Vampire. I would love to do. I mean, to be honest, like I could just do D&D forever, and then just bring in different people from the D&D world to run different games occasionally. But Shadowrun would be cool. Traveler. I'm just thinking. To be honest, like I know the game never took off, but do you remember Boot Hill?
I do.
It was like the Western RPG. So yeah, man, I would go super obscure. Awesome.
For like one session. But no, yeah, actually that's our group. We are essentially D&D heads, but we do like a lot of times what we do is we bring in other GMs to run different games for us. So we don't actually have to learn the rules per se. We can just like show up with a character and figure it out as we go.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, for me, there are things that are like I don't profess to be a rule expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I played D&D for so many years growing up, and then into my adult life, and then running campaigns in college, and then just continuing to play, that kind of like the way football stats roll off people's brains or whatever. For me, like D&D will always be sort of ingrained in my DNA at this point. I've played it for too long. Even though 5th edition is starkly different from, advanced D&D or 2nd edition or things like that, that I played probably the bulk of my time playing those, and then 3rd, and then 3.5, and then some Pathfinder, and then 4, and then 5. It's like second nature, as it is to you too. Like it's second nature to us. So to share that joy of playing it with others and seeing people get it for the first time is super rewarding and fun. And then for people to watch them sort of go, aha, this is why people play this game. This is why people love this game. That is the most rewarding feeling to me.
So there's been a recommendation in the chat, and I was thinking about bringing this one up as well. Doug says perhaps fate set in the world of Ravillo. Brian Collin is also hanging out in the chat, and he makes these awesome sculptures of monsters from his world, and it actually started as sculptures beforehand that his son and him create together. His son is like 6 or 7, and he's been doing this for years with them, where they make up monsters. And then Brian will draw and be like this, and his son will, give him the revisions or whatever, and then he'll sculpt it. And some of them are like full busts on a wall, heads of these things. That I've got one I picked up at I think Gen Con, and the thing is like this big. It's decent size, and these things are fantastic. I could definitely see you guys playing that game with a bunch of like his sculptures all around the set. Would be amazing.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, definitely send me the info on that.
I will definitely do that. I will shoot you an email and connect you with Brian, and you can check out his stuff. If nothing else, I know you'll enjoy looking at all of his creatures over at Creature Curations.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, usually when you're at a con, like you can find his booth because there's like a monster head like sticking out into the aisle just a little bit.
And there's a crowd of people around just looking at the stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He was talking about someone wanted to commission him to do a full size owlbear, and I was like, oh, that would be amazing.
Wow, that would be awesome. That'd be tough to move though. You'd probably have to make it and then cut it into pieces to ship.
Yeah, yeah. I think he delivers a lot of these. He was talking about going up to Canada, driving up to Canada, and for I think it was like a gaming pub, and they
Uh-huh.
ordered a bunch of the heads to put on the walls.
I wonder what it was like at the border.
Yeah,
What are all these heads in your car, sir?
yeah. I guess fortunately they don't actually look like anything from this world. That's for sure.
Mm. Mm.
So, um, so how many shows are you doing with Alpha and Geek and Sundry? It sounds like you're all over the place. You're busy, man.
Yeah. Well, right now, so Thrashtopia and Starter Kit are the shows that I'm on now, but then I often will guest on Game the Game. Next week, I'm going to be on 3 shows. I'm going to be on Lore Masters because they're doing an episode on Tolkien, which is why I'm rereading the Silmarillion, because I don't want to look like an idiot on Tolkien lore, even though that besides D&D being in my DNA, Tolkien's pretty much in my DNA. But I really wanted to just refresh myself on all the Maiar and the different the Noldor and all the real detailed stuff in Silmarillion. But yeah, next week I'm gonna be on Loy Masters, and then I'm also gonna be on there's a show called Dick and Johnson where they play an RPG called Chew Bubblegum and Kick Ass, which is like this simple role playing game where you start with a certain number of chewing gum, and then if you roll anything you want to do in the game, so you start with like 8 pieces of chewing gum, and if you roll under the number, you've succeeded. But if you roll over the number, you fail, which means that you kick ass. So you start punching people, and then you lose a piece of gum. So you start with 8, but then towards the end of the game, like almost every roll is you've got to fight. So that's the game mechanics of the show Dick and Johnson. And then Friday night they have a show called Gather Your Party, which is one of my favorite shows because it's the community just kind of relaxing and hanging out. So it's a hangout show, but there's always different themes. To it. So you have like a group of like 10 or 12 people from the community all talking. We interact with chat, much like we're doing here, answering questions, doing things that the chat might suggest or something. And then, but this, not this Friday, but next Friday is the holiday episode. So I'll be leading some sing-alongs in royalty-free holiday songs.
That's it's funny. I'm looking at the chat, and it took me a couple minutes to figure out, like, why do they keep saying JCM? What do they mean?
Oh, that's me.
That's you. Doug had asked earlier if you have any involvement with any products for RPGs.
No, nothing specifically. A lot of the things I'm involved with are on the music side. So I'm endorsed by ESP Guitars for electric guitars. I'm endorsed by Takamine Guitars for acoustics, SIT Strings, Lewitt microphones. So all the things that I'm involved with are more from the music world. So nothing specific in the gaming community.
And now just entertainment in general, really, if you think, like, because we're on Project Alpha for a ton of stuff. Aaron Marks, the educational series we were talking about is the starter kit, and that's just basically like an intro into different RPGs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, One of the, and I probably never explained how the idea of Starter Kit becoming a show came to be. And Sean Becker, who is one of the heads of Geek and Sundry, but who, I mean, he's amazing. He's the head of video production. So he's one of the bosses there. He was the director of Felicia Day's show, The Guild, for the bulk of the episodes for seasons 2, 3, 4, and 5. And he is a master at directing and making shows, but he's just not an RPG guy. I mean, he's becoming one now, but he just never was an RPG guy. And he was like, look, Critical Role is our biggest show, and I like it, and I like watching it, but I don't really understand what's happening as far as, game mechanics. He goes, why don't we, he watched me do the back to basic thing where I was explaining the differences between the two rule sets. And he said, why don't we make a show where you kind of explain from the bottom up what D&D is? And then from that idea, that's when it came into, let's do D&D, but let's do other RPGs too, to kind of expand the breadth of the show or the width of the show. And so really it came from a place of, I don't understand what's happening on the show. Let's make this a bridge for people to understand that. And I thought that was really cool to have that opportunity.
So Tucker Author wants to know if you ever get together with your old bandmates.
I do. It's funny. Everyone lives in a different city. There's one bandmate that still lives in LA, and I get together with him. But our old drummer James lives in San Diego when I'm down there. Actually, when I was there for Comic-Con this year, he came up to see me, which was cool. And then I think Mike lives in Nashville now. And I will be on tour a lot in 2018. I was saying my album comes out in April, and I'm a solo artist now, but my new album is very rock oriented, crossed with some southern rock and country. And if you're a Godhead fan, my latest solo record is probably as close to a Godhead record as I've been as a solo artist for a long time. Because when Godhead started to slow down, and I became a solo artist, I didn't want to put something out that sounded just like my old band. That was always my pet peeve, when bands break up and then new bands form, and then I'm not in my old band anymore. This is my new band. And then you listen to it, and it sounds exactly like my old band.
Yeah, 5 versions of the same band.
Yeah. So Godhead was very, it was industrial. We used a lot of programming. It was still always about the songs. It's always going to be about the songs for me. But I was like, I want to do something. I want to go completely 180. I want it to be just me and a guitar, and then I'll build the sound, me and an acoustic guitar, and then I'll build the sound back up from there. And then I started visiting Nashville a lot, because some of the best songwriters in the world live there. And, sort of started developing what my sound as a solo artist would be. And then I ended up getting a song in True Blood on HBO. And I said, okay, well, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe what I'm doing, people are digging again. And then that's sort of what inspired me to continue to go down that road. And then, I had the great opportunity to co-produce Billy Ray Cyrus's album, which was, happened completely by accident, but it was a happy accident. And then, so sorry, long story longer. I will be, I'll be on the road a lot this in 2018. So definitely look up my tour dates and come to a show, come say hi. We can talk about RPGs forever. I'd like to talk about that more than anything else.
So is your tour schedule posted anywhere yet?
Yeah, at jasoncharlesmiller.com, you can find my tour dates. Right now, I just have I'm playing South by Southwest in March, and that's all I have on the calendar for now, but those dates will be filling in soon.
So you have any plans to shoot out towards Philadelphia?
For sure, definitely.
Nice, because we live in South Jersey, which is like right across the bridge from Philly.
For a short amount of time when I was 9, I lived in Livingston, New Jersey
That's on the
for
other
about a
end.
year. Yeah.
It's up by New York, closer to New York.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. I will definitely have to keep my eyes peeled, and maybe we'll hang out when you're in Philadelphia.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be way cool. I'm trying to figure out my tour schedule right now for
Oh, right.
for for conventions. So we're trying to figure that out still. We got one on the calendar so far.
I
Probably hit
really,
Origins and Gen Con, the big ones. And
I know, man. I've never been to Gen Con. And I remember from when I had a Dragon magazine subscription, when Gen Con was in Lake Geneva. And I love that, like, now there's Gary Con, and that's in Lake Geneva. And I had the good fortune of meeting Luke Gygax recently when uh, they did a GM Tips live on Project Alpha. That Satine and Matt
are you
Mercer.
part of the Satine tour when she pops when she has guests come in?
The Satine tour?
Yeah. Because
Uh,
he
what do
was
you
on
mean?
GM Tips as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I was on GM Tips also with her. So yeah, we're all in that GM Tips family. One funny story I think you'd appreciate was so in one of my homebrew campaigns that I was actually a player in that my friend George was running a couple years ago, but out here, um, our our party was we were a bunch of jerks, and so we killed this beholder, and what we were trying to do was we were trying to convince our our DM that we could kill the beholder, but if you kill the beholder, would it still levitate, and could we use it to carry treasure on? Like a tensor's floating disk or something. And of course, that's absurd, right? But we were trying to argue with him that we could do it. So I posted something on Facebook, and Keith Baker, the creator of Eberron, who I happened to meet through Satine, uh, wrote a really long explanation about how we couldn't because beholders uh, levitate due to sort of like a gaseous air sac system, and that's how they levitate. And then I liked that answer, but then I really started looking up who envisioned the beholder first, who created the beholder, and I found out that it was Theron Kuntz, who was Gary Gygax's friend's little brother. And so Theron Kuntz is a very unique name. So I actually found him on Facebook, and I asked him the question, and he wrote me a great answer about how beholders actually float due to telekinesis. So if you killed the beholder, it would float to the ground very quickly because it was no longer sentient, no longer alive. It was just going to plop to the ground. But I thought that that was kind of hilarious that, like, now uh, in a very short order, due to how connected we are, I was able to find the person who the beholder literally sprang from his mind, and I was able to find him and get an answer from him, and he got a kick out of it. He's like an investment banker in San Francisco now and doesn't really play games anymore. But I was talking to Luke about that, and he thought that was hilarious. So
That is funny. Aaron Marks wants to know uh, any thoughts, or would you consider doing like sound and audio packs for tabletop role playing games?
yeah, the longer I would, it's just that's the most time consuming as far as, like, if you're going to do like long uh, scores of stuff. I tend to, since I'm a songwriter, like my focus has always been on, I do theme songs, and songs that like will appear in episodes of different TV shows and movies and stuff like that. But I sort of know my strengths and my weaknesses, and my strengths are in writing like short, catchy things to kind of set the mood. But and I have scored some things, but to make a whole pack of music, I think would that would, I just don't know if I would have the time considering all the stuff that I'm doing, because that's really, then you're talking about like, a half hour piece that's sort of, and different movements that go throughout it. And I know that there are people that do that a lot better than I do.
Yeah, there's definitely some programs out there now like Sirenscapes and a few other that keep popping up.
Yeah, Sirenscapes are really good.
Yeah, we actually had the owner DJ for the Maze Arcana game we played in at Gen Con, so that was pretty cool.
I just did 2 episodes of Sirens of the Realms, and Satine was using their music, and I mean it was great. But like even for Sirens of the Realms, we wrote 2 songs for our characters that we performed during the show, during the game.
So were you one of the opening acts for the Sirens, or?
No, what happened was is I was it's because it's already aired. I was a multi-class bard thief that happened upon them and helped them rescue one of their friends that had been kidnapped. But Amy Dallin played my my partner in crime, and she was a pure rogue. But I wrote a theme song for the 2 of us, and then Vivka, Amy, and I wrote a sort of farewell song for the next episode.
Nice, that's great. The Amy's are a blast to play with.
Oh yeah.
Satine
And
Amy played halfling sisters in the game that we played.
Amy Dallin or Amy Vorpal?
Yes.
Which one? Oh, both.
Yeah, you both of them.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, Amy Vorpal and I, because we were on Foreververse together, we actually have an album out. We're a duo called The Deadly Grind, because her name is Vorpal, which means deadly, and my last name is Miller, which is to grind. So we're called The Deadly Grind, and we have an album out right now on iTunes of all of songs based on what happened in Foreververse. So you should check that out too. It's streaming on Spotify as well.
You're gonna have to send me a list of stuff. Now I know why you only sent me like 3 links here, because there's probably too much stuff for you to track down.
Yeah, I kind of forget sometimes, so I'm always working.
The excuse I always use is the late 80s, early 90s were rough. So
okay.
Someone did ask, I believe it was Shadowcat that asked if you plan on doing any international appearances with your touring, or is it all going to be US?
Oh yeah. I've always, especially with Godhead, I've always had a really good done well in the UK specifically, but also in Western Europe. So I mean, that is definitely the goal for sure.
So Shadowcat more specifically wanted to know about the UK, but I figured I would expand it to just international in general.
Yeah. No, I mean, if I'm going to go overseas, the UK is the first stop. For
nice.
Sure.
See, Truemate, I didn't know he voiced Avatar, Helsing, and
One Piece.
One Piece. That's awesome. Yeah. Just chilling on the wiki page.
Yeah. Actually, if you go to my website or my IMDb, it has a more detailed parts. I was just in Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, and I had a cool little 4-episode arc on Attack on Titan too.
So we're right up on the hour. Can you give us a little drits before we go? Is that annoying when people ask you to do voice?
No, yeah. I mean, what's cool is it's not just like, hello, I'm just I've heard about your adventures from Regis, or I believe you know him as Spider.
Awesome, cool. So, what do you want to leave people with before we go? Other than I've got some links in the description, but apparently you could probably find millions more.
Yeah, thanks for paying attention. I'm glad that what it said. That famous quote. not a famous quote, but like there's a Bible verse or something that says, "The meek shall inherit the earth." Well, the geeks have inherited the earth. So, you know, how cool is it that we get to sit here and talk about this and get to work in this world, and that everyone that grew up playing D&D, we're now adults, and we're now like people that are shaping the real world. And here we are, you know, being able to be ourselves. And it's not a child's game. It's like, it's just something that's part of us. And I think it's great that as a community, we can all communicate together and continue to enjoy doing the things that we love. So
that, you know, true mate, that's brilliant. It's a misprint.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us today, and thank you for hanging out with me. I know it's early over there in LA. Greatly appreciate it. I know you have a really busy schedule, and would definitely love to hook up with you when you find yourself over on the East Coast for sure, man.
Definitely.
So with that, guys, until next time, stay nerdy.